Roman Reigns has long stood as one of the defining figures in professional wrestling, shaping the WWE landscape through dominance, reinvention, and charisma. However, the wrestling world now finds itself at a turning point, as Reigns approaches the end of his storied career, expected to conclude around 2028, possibly earlier. WWE must address mounting concerns related to his limited availability, his massive influence on storytelling, and the business realities of keeping a superstar of his caliber under a part-time schedule. While his time at the top has redefined what it means to be a leading man in WWE, the current circumstances raise important questions about how to handle his departure, use his remaining appearances effectively, and transition into a new era without losing momentum. Reigns' evolution from polarizing babyface to revered villain was not just a character turn, it was a shift that helped carry WWE through a difficult period. Becoming the tribal chief reinvigorated his career and the creative direction of WWE, helping maintain the company's prominence in an ever-changing entertainment climate. But since his 2022 contract that allowed him to step back for personal and health reasons, his presence has become increasingly rare. Despite this, Reigns has continued to influence key storylines, often headlining major events even with months of absence in between. While this has made him feel like a special attraction, it has also frustrated fans accustomed to consistent appearances from marquee talent. WWE faces a difficult task, balancing his mythos while still delivering on the promises that long-term narratives make. Part of the difficulty in managing Reigns stems from the nature of the current media environment. WWE operates in a fast-paced entertainment industry that thrives on daily engagement, social media updates, and continuous content. When a figure as central as Reigns disappears for extended periods, the void he leaves disrupts not just week-to-week television, but also fan interest and emotional investment in major arcs. When Paul Heyman shockingly betrayed Reigns at WrestleMania 41, a move hailed as one of the event's highlights, there was an expectation of immediate fallout. Instead, the silence that followed cooled the excitement, leaving viewers without the closure or continuation that modern audiences demand. While mystery and suspense can serve storytelling, indefinite delays and payoffs often feel like neglect. The underlying issue isn't just Reigns' part-time status, but how WWE incorporates him into key narratives without the ability to sustain those narratives with regular appearances. It's a creative contradiction, using Reigns to spark enormous story beats while lacking the capacity to follow through. This model worked when he was the ultimate antagonist, with the bloodline doing his bidding in his absence, but it has proven less effective when he transitions into other roles, especially those requiring consistent heroism or emotional resonance. A part-time presence weakens the psychological impact of a protagonist when fans can't reliably see their journey unfold. Moreover, WWE has undergone significant structural changes since Reigns' latest deal was inked. The company's acquisition by TKO Holdings introduced a new management culture focused more intently on fiscal outcomes. In that context, continuing to pay one individual approximately $15 million per year becomes harder to justify, especially if that figure isn't accompanied by consistent visibility and engagement. No longer operating solely under the creative whims of Vince McMahon, WWE now answers to corporate stakeholders whose interest lies primarily in sustainable returns. That shift places Reigns' current deal under a new kind of scrutiny, one in which sentimentality or respect for past service holds less weight than quarterly profit statements. While fans may still feel affection and loyalty toward Reigns, WWE must now weigh the practicality of his role. As a performer who once carried the company, he's earned his part-time status and the respect it symbolizes. Yet sentiment cannot dictate strategy forever. With WWE reaching record revenue and growing its roster of capable talent, the pressure mounts to invest in stars who can appear consistently, engage regularly, and develop new long-term storylines without disruption. Reigns, with his special event presence, might continue to serve as a compelling figure in limited capacities, but the model of having him function as the centerpiece of the entire product may no longer be sustainable. Health concerns also loom large. Reigns' battle with leukemia is never far from fans' minds, even if he remains in remission. It's a personal topic, one rightfully guarded, but its implications are vast. WWE, too, likely factors his health into scheduling and creative decisions, understanding the risks and responsibilities of working with a performer with such a medical history. That privacy, while important, adds another layer of complexity to WWE's planning. Without full clarity, it becomes even harder to predict when and how Reigns can be used, making consistency nearly impossible. This unpredictability, though understandable, presents a challenge in a business that thrives on continuity. One of the more telling indicators of the current dilemma is how Reigns was used after his loss to Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania 40. That match, widely regarded as a modern classic, should have been a turning point that transitioned Reigns into the next phase of his role, whether as a mentor, a dominant but distant legend, or a final boss figure awaiting a worthy challenger. Instead, he disappeared again, leaving fans with the question of what came next. By the time he returned, the emotional intensity had waned, and WWE had to rebuild momentum that had already peaked months prior. This start-stop pattern has affected not just Reigns' own arcs, but also those of his rivals and allies, leading to stalled momentum momentum and narrative confusion. The issue becomes even more evident when examining how WWE used the Bloodline to fill the gap left by Reigns. The group, once the most dominant faction in modern wrestling, began to fracture without its leader. While Solo Sikoa and others stepped up, the lack of Reigns' anchoring presence diminished the group's impact. There were moments of brilliance, but the power vacuum was noticeable. WWE had an opportunity to use Reigns' absence to elevate someone new to that top-tier status consistently, but the lack of follow-through made these transitions feel incomplete. In doing so, WWE not only missed chances to build new stars, but also risked diluting the legacy Reigns had helped create. Financial considerations will play a major role in determining how much longer WWE can support the current arrangement. While Reigns remains a proven draw for marquee events, questions remain about his ability to contribute meaningfully to weekly programming. A company as large as WWE must constantly evaluate the return on investment for every decision, and a star who appears sporadically, even one as impactful as Reigns, must eventually justify his role beyond legacy. TKO's leadership may determine that his current compensation is out of sync with his actual output, especially in an era where other stars are proving capable of drawing large crowds, merchandise sales, and viewership spikes. Another aspect that cannot be overlooked is the nature of fan engagement in the modern era. Wrestling audiences today are not passive consumers. They follow every move closely, create conversations online, and respond instantly to developments, or lack thereof. When a character disappears for extended stretches, speculation grows, but patience shrinks. WWE has trained its audience to expect weekly progression, cliffhangers, surprises, and continuity. In this environment, long gaps with little or no update feel more like neglect than mystery. As much as Reigns' infrequent appearances aim to preserve his aura, they also create a perception of inaccessibility that can alienate some viewers. If Reigns is nearing the end of his career, then WWE has to start laying the groundwork now for how to bring his story to a fitting conclusion. This includes identifying the right opponent, building a credible narrative arc that pays off emotionally, and ensuring the finale doesn't feel rushed or disjointed. One suggestion that's gained traction among fans is for his final showdown to be against Seth Rollins, his former Shield teammate and longtime foil. Such a matchup would bring years of shared history full circle, giving fans a sense of closure and satisfaction. But for that to work, WWE must start telling that story soon. While Reigns is still healthy and while Rollins remains in top form, WWE must also consider the broader implications of a Reigns retirement. For over a decade, he has been the company's figurehead, the reliable main eventer, the person most synonymous with big moments. His departure would leave a void that cannot be filled overnight. However, the current roster is better prepared than ever to absorb that loss. Stars like Cody Rhodes, Gunther, Sami Zayn, and LA Knight have built strong connections with fans. The company's recent focus on younger talent and better storytelling suggests that the infrastructure is finally in place to transition away from Reigns without a collapse in interest. That said, the end of Reigns' full-time career does not have to be the end of his contributions to WWE. Much like The Undertaker or John Cena, he can return occasionally for special events, one-off rivalries, and major milestones. Used sparingly and strategically, he can still deliver value and preserve his legend status. The key will be in reorienting how he is promoted, not as the center of everything, but as a living myth who appears when least expected. This allows for flexibility in storytelling and gives fans something to look forward to without depending entirely on his availability. The new era of WWE under TKO also demands that all stars be held to similar standards of productivity and return. Reigns, while exceptional, must also fit within this model. Gone are the days when WWE could afford to bend every rule for one talent. Today, with billions invested and an eye toward future expansion, the focus is on scalable systems, reliable performers, and dynamic storytelling that can sustain itself across multiple channels and platforms. Within this reality, even legends must be evaluated for how they contribute to the long-term health of the brand. Ultimately, the situation with Roman Reigns reflects a broader tension in wrestling, the clash between myth-making and modern content demands. His presence elevates every show he appears on, but his absence creates gaps that can be hard to fill. His part-time status allows him to maintain his physical well-being and mystique, yet it limits WWE's ability to use him in the most narratively satisfying ways. As his contract winds down and as retirement draws nearer, WWE must pivot, both creatively and operationally, to ensure that they maximize what time they have left with him while also preparing the audience for a future without him. Managing the final phase of Roman Reigns' career requires WWE to recalibrate both its creative ambitions and logistical commitments. One of the primary obstacles lies in reshaping audience expectations that have been conditioned over a decade to view Reigns as the anchor of marquee events and the emotional epicenter of grandiose storylines. The longer the company delays a clear, structured pivot, the harder it becomes to seamlessly transition fan investment to newer, regularly appearing figures. Integrating Roman into programming sporadically without clear trajectory or resolution risks diminishing questioning the long-term effectiveness of the very mythos WWE so carefully crafted. A more refined use of Reigns in specialty roles, whether as a mentor in backstage segments, a surprise factor in climactic showdowns, or a moral compass in complex rivalries, could preserve his stature while freeing the weekly spotlight for others. Instead of deploying him as a delayed resolution device, WWE could structure his involvement more tactically, timing his appearances to supplement existing arcs rather than drive them entirely. This would allow creative flexibility without relying on his constant availability or risking storyline fatigue due to inactivity. This balancing act is one of WWE's most critical challenges today. If done poorly, it could undermine years of storytelling and alienate fans who feel deprived of the closure they deserve. If done well, it could serve as a masterclass in how to transition a legendary figure out of active competition while preserving the power and prestige he built. Either way, time is of the essence. The clock is ticking, and every appearance from Reigns carries added weight. WWE must act decisively, not just for Reigns' sake, but for the health and future of its entire narrative ecosystem.